Hi, it's Tracy. Welcome to my home here in Sussex, England. In this episode, we are going to be shopping my home, breathing new life into old furniture, and creating a beautiful outdoor space using what I already own. What we are not going to be doing is spending much money. You join me in my outdoor kitchen area, which I built from leftovers and scraps, but more on that later. This is the area we're going to work on today, and I'm going to show you how I decorate without spending vast amounts of money. Meet Bertie and Bear, the furry supervisors, and my very favourite charity shop. I'm a frequent flyer here, and early in the year I spotted these two chair frames for just £5 each. When I saw them, I instantly thought garden furniture. Garden furniture is so expensive to buy, so if I can use indoor furniture outside, then happy days. It wasn't until I got them home and started giving them a good clean that I realised IKEA. Look at the price of that, 129. The cushions were missing from them, but that's absolutely fine. We can work around that. I only sanded the area where the pinholes were, where I'd taken off that Velcro. The rest of the chairs, I just washed them down, made sure they were nice and clean, and then got ready to paint them. This is the paint of choice. If you saw last episode, you'll have seen me work with this green colour. I had it matched to a farrow and ball colour, and I just loved it so much. I have painted so many things with this colour, and I'll tell you exactly how many later on. Now, you could use a brush or a roller to do this, but I fortunately have a sprayer. Haven't used it a vast amount just lately. I have preferred to use the brush, the roller, but I think with something like this, I've got it, I might as well use it. And it does give such a lovely finish. After 2 good coats, I left these to dry. You normally give this sort of paint 7 days to really cure, but I did these a long time ago, so they've just been sat in storage. Before we get them out, let's go back into the courtyard and do a little bit of flower pot arranging. These are potato chitting trays. I bought a job lot of them years ago, and they are so useful. Here's a collection of some cuttings that I've taken. I do it with various plants. I'll purposely take cuttings, particularly of hydrangeas. Or then I find things growing in cracks or in places they shouldn't be, and I just pop them in little pots and keep moving them on. Here's one that I started where I found it in the little crack of a pavement, and now it's almost as tall as the cottage. Okay, time to bring those chairs in. And 2 chairs together like that would benefit from a side table. So bring on the potato chitting trays. You could use anything to do this with, just an old box. Anything you can pick up, you can turn it into a coffee table, a side table. Now, this is a back of a sofa, and when I did this before, somebody messaged me and said they must be so uncomfortable sitting on the backs. Trust me, darlings, they are so comfy, so fluffy. Homemade cushions as well. I buy fabric from the charity shops, and then I turn them into cushions. Now, if you watched last episode, you'll have seen me find this fabric. It was from Dunelm Mill, but of course, I found it in a charity shop for £7.50, and the challenge was to see how many cushions we could make from it. Now, the material is actually quite thin, so I thought, I will use the lining as well. I am not a natural born sewer. So let's just get this clarified right from the get-go here. I've taught myself by watching YouTube videos, and this is the simplest method I've found that works for me. So I take the width of the cushion pad, and that is going to be the width of my fabric. For the length, I double the cushion pad and add on a few inches. So this pad is 16 inches. Double that, that's 32. They normally say add on 5, but actually I'm adding on 8 and going to 40 in length. Once I've marked that off, cut it out, I'm then just going to stitch down the 2 long sides. This is a machine that I have borrowed back from my daughter, and it's absolutely amazing. Love it. So simple to use. So once I've done either a zigzag or a straight stitch down the 2 long ends, I then go to the short ends, turn up about an inch or so, press that in and then fold it over and go halfway again, if you like, into the crease line. Press all that down and then just use a few pins to keep it in position. Back to the machine, stitch both of the short ends back onto the ironing board, fold it in half and find the center point, which I mark with a pin. I'm then going to open up that fabric and flip it over so I've got my finished side facing me, and then bring one end into that center point, which has been marked with a pin, and then just bring the other end over until I get the width of the pad, which is 16 inches. There are all sorts of complicated calculations, but I just found this method works best for me. I then just pin these 2 loose sides, take it back to the machine, and just run a stitch straight down. I also find it useful as well if you put the pins in so they're facing you, the heads are facing you, they're really easy to take out as you whiz down with the machine. And then all that's left to do is turn it inside out, and to get those lovely sharp corners, I use a chopstick or a skewer. Now, when I got to this stage, I realised that I'd kind of done a boo-boo. All the pattern was on the back, which meant the front was rather plain. Now, I did try. And the episode went out and I had so many lovely, lovely comments. Firstly, saying well done with the cushions, because as I said, I am not a natural born sewer. But they came up with some lovely, lovely solutions, such as stitching on buttons, not creating buttonholes, but just putting some faux buttons on, maybe putting ribbons on, just so it looked intentional and I could display them with all that pattern showing at the front. I love this community. You really do come up with the best suggestions. And how many cushions did I get out of my £7.50 curtains? 8. I used 6 of them out on this cottage veranda, which meant I had 2 left in order to use in the courtyard. Remember to check out the fabric when you're going around your thrift stores. Right, the coffee table, side table, let's do something for that. Earlier in the year, you saw me go to auction and I came across this job lot of plant pots. Some of them had matching little saucers with them. Spread them all out and thought, not really my taste, but we improvised and we took the green ones, planted up some supermarket trees and used those on the house veranda in my spring-summer decorating. And I'm pleased to report they are growing so well. They are loving it out there. Down at my local supermarket, one day I spotted some bright yellow flowers. And you know where I'm going with this, don't you? Yes, these osteospermum flowers, £2.50 each. Only they're £2 each because it was 3 for £6. So I brought those home and I thought, well, ideal opportunity to use these yellow planters and really bring in a big pop of colour into that area. I always just use normal multi-purpose potting compost, and I find the easiest way to do it is in a wheelbarrow. Just open up the bag, sort out your planting, and all the little spillages just go straight back in so you don't waste anything. Give the pot a quick clean up and bish bash bosh, you are good to go. Now, this was a few months ago and we were having lovely weather at the time until this happened. The heavens opened, the temperature plummeted, we had hailstones, we had gale force winds. I could have cried. I sorted them out. I clipped the heads off. We then had heat wave after heat wave. So I am amazed that I am decorating with these little babies, quite frankly. Now, this candle, you will have seen me some years ago decorate with this. I haven't had it out for ages. It was a clearance item at TK Maxx. And what I love about it is that it is terrazzo, and the candle sits inside. So when you finished with it, you can still then use the container for something else. I think it might look nice in a bathroom with some cotton buds in. Over to my old gate leg table. Again, this was an auction find many years ago. It's never lived in the house. It's always lived outside. I sanded off the lacquer, the varnish that was on it, and then just let the oak silver down. I have had to support it somewhat underneath, but it's surviving. Now, down to my storage shed because we need to look for chairs. Again, I'm not going to go out and buy garden chairs. I'm going to use things that I have already. In here, there are some chairs. I promise you, I know it's chaotic, isn't it? I still haven't organised this shed properly. But the boys have helped me pull out these 4 dining chairs. They used to be in the kitchen. They've been in previous houses. They've been all sorts of colours. And I did black lacquer them once upon a time. So that's why that one was a bit patchy there. I tried to sand it back and it was just going to be really hard work. So I'd already covered the seat pads. So I thought, right, well, let's get some exterior paint on them. And of course, it is this Cinza. It's a wonderful product, this, and it is very, very good for external. And if you've protected your indoor furniture with exterior paint, there's no reason why you can't use it outside. Now, obviously, I'm not advocating taking out your beloved heirlooms, your antique furniture. But, if it's something you're not particularly precious about and you're probably just going to donate it to the charity shop anyway, then why not utilise it? Now we are back down the shed because we need some more chairs. I only had 4 of those dining chairs, but I did have 2 of these leather ones. These were from years ago, and I've just had these in storage. They don't really suit my style. They're a bit too modern. But yes, I thought, let's have them outside. When there is rain in the forecast, they are going to have to go under cover. But for long, hot, sunny spells like we've got at the moment, they are perfect to use outside. Tablecloth and tray are old HomeSense finds. The jug was in an auction job lot, and the candles, always buy them discounted, out of season. Again, HomeSense. Now, we need to put something into this lovely old jug. So I've got the boys and we are heading over to my cut flower bed, which in previous years has been wonderful. I got so many pickings from it. This year it is an unmitigated disaster. Nothing is coming up as it should do. I normally have loads of sweet peas going up the back there. Nope, they've all died. So last year I went to Home Bargains and I found these solar lights. They were just 99p each. And I thought It'd be quite interesting to decorate with this bulb shape. And they were very easy to use. You just switch them on and just let the sun do the work. And I used them down by our deck area near the stream. They lived in the shed over the winter months and they all look in decent condition. Most of them seem to light up again. So I thought actually it would be quite sweet to hang them all from the netting at the back just to add some interest and some colour. Yeah, I'd like to see the deer try and eat these. However, I did notice the other day a little bit of a hole at the top. Thought it might have been the deer. Then I noticed the grass had been cut behind. Oh, husband. My clumsy husband who's always trying to blame the dogs for everything. The dahlias are a disaster this year as well. Last year they were fabulous, but they've just stopped growing. The only thing that really seems to be thriving is rosemary. So we're going to cut some of that because I love to add rosemary to flower arrangements. To the rosemary, I'm going to add some Annabelle hydrangea. This is my big gal. She is just voluptuous and flouncy, always amazing at this time of year, as are my other hydrangeas. But then I went away on holiday with my family, had the most wonderful time with my children and my grandchild, came back and this is what she'd done. She'd just got overexcited, hadn't she? Oh, we had a heat wave when we were away. And look at that hydrangea. That was how it looked. Oh my gosh, I was gutted. Ready for another makeover? This time it is my daughter's old university bike. I sprayed this up white years ago and then people kept telling me, oh, did somebody die? I didn't know that you painted bikes white and left them around as ghost bikes. So I think it's time I change the colour. And of course, it's the fabulous green. Now, this was the last thing I sprayed out of this tin and I used a full 5 litres of paint. That's 4 chairs, 1 bike, 1 sofa, 2 armchairs, 1 side table, 1 bathtub with lid, 1 rocking chair, 1 porch swing, and not 1, but 2 trays. 14 items out of 5 litres of paint. I think I did quite well there. Time to plant up the basket and head back over to Home Bargains. I find they have a good selection and they're very reasonably priced. I found these red geraniums for just $1.99 and it's a nice little nod to the red cover on the grill. And to line the basket, I've just used a bin liner that I've popped a few holes in the bottom for drainage. When I built this outdoor kitchen, I set myself the task of not spending a single penny, only using leftover materials from the main build and things that we already had. It really pushes your creativity when you can't just buy your way out of a situation. You have to really improvise. On this overhang here, I decided I wanted to hang some lights. Now, very early in the season, I found these on Amazon. And the thing I loved about them the most is the twine, the rope, because if you've been with me for a while, you know I'm always twiddling with twine in some shape or form. They seem to be really good quality. Obviously, the devil's in the detail and time will tell, but they've got lots of functionality to them. The next stage was to figure out how to put them all together. So the solar section, I thought, well, I really want to get it on top of the roof. It's got a hook area, something I could hook onto, but how to get the flex through? My first idea was to put it behind the guttering, and that didn't work because there wasn't enough room. So I got out my multi-purpose hooks. You have seen me decorate with these time and time again. Be wary though, because they're not good on painted surfaces. So I actually put some of those hooks on top of the roof, hooked the solar panels on, and that seemed to work. So then I was able to put the connecting wires over the guttering, but that just looked a bit unsightly. So I got out my cable clips, went with a 10mm, that seemed to be the right sort of size, and just pinned them behind so I could pull the wires over. And there we go. Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt. Next stage to figure out is how to then hang them. Now, I didn't want to put lots of nails and holes into the rafters. So a cunning plan was needed. As luck would have it, my tree surgeon was in helping me raise the canopy on this oak. I've been meaning to do it for absolutely ages. So I went down with my tape measure and selected a few branches, but how to attach them without putting nails and screws and holes into the rafters. Out came the string bag, and I have this very strong upholstery string. So I thought, ooh, I wonder. And yes, I wondered correctly. I was able, because it was so thin, to feed it under the roof and over the rafters, and it could take the weight of everything. I then wrapped all the lights around, and happy days. And yes, the leaves will dry back, so I will either leave them or I'll just nip them all off and use the bare branches. Now, I wanted something to go into this area. Down in the storage shed, I have this huge twig heart. I bought 3 of them from HomeSense many moons ago. I think one has died. I've got one in the office, and I've got this one. I tried it up, but I thought that is a little bit boring. We can do better than that. So I remembered something that I made last year. Let's have a little throwback and see what I got up to. I've got a wreath, I've got some covered twine, scissors, an ice cream scoop, and some wire cutters. I'm reusing a really cheap garland from Amazon. I'm reusing leftover greenery from other projects, and the same with the florals. I've pulled a few out to see what I fancy. Now, there is already a little tie on this wreath base. This wreath base was an old wreath from many years ago, and I just pulled all the gubbins off. The garland itself is actually made up of 2 strands, and they are so cheap, you know, particularly when you're going to hang them up in a distance. So hat has gone on, as it is incredibly hot. I'm using the covered wire that I get from Amazon. Again, it'll be linked below. I love using this because it's got a real rustic vibe to it. And I don't necessarily need to hide it either, because I will be adding more of it as I go through building up this wreath. The ice cream scoop has the perfect size handle for making the covered wire spirals that I love to use. So that was my zero cost wreath that I made last summer. I hung it up in the kitchen, it went onto the mirror, and it lived there happily all summer long. So I thought, why don't I add it to the great big heart? After all, I do lots of layering in my decorating. We're going to move down to the other end of the kitchen now and work our way along. But let's start with some shelf styling. And this is a perfect opportunity to get my vintage scales out. I do like to mix fresh and faux. And I have a collection of faux plants that I no longer use in the house. So they've just been sat in the storage shed, which seems a bit of a waste. So we're going to give them a little spruce up and a slightly different vibe. And the dark wax has come out. Such a simple way to transform pretty much anything. I love my dark wax. When I popped the big one up there, it just wasn't giving me the right vibe. And then I remember all my terracotta pots. So I thought, right, I will pull out my terracotta and just pop those into them. Different vibe again. More vintage scales, not ones I'd ever use in the house, but perfect for outdoor decorating, along with a few old tins. Oh, I'll style with anything. Little bit of housekeeping, folks. If you are still here with me, I'm hoping you're enjoying what I'm doing. Please do remember to hit that thumbs up and subscribe, leave a comment, all the different things, share with your friends, or maybe pop me on again in the background whilst you're decorating. Every little helps. Thank you so much. Now, you may have noticed my homemade kitchen tap hasn't got a sink. That's because I use a jam pan. It saved me having to connect to waste, and it also means that whenever I've used water there, I can just go and tip it on the plants. Recycling. I'm not averse to using artwork outside as well, particularly when it's already broken. As you've probably gathered by now, I am very much a waste not, want not kind of gal. The grill was found on eBay and we've had it for many years. It was on a stand, so when we built the kitchen, we just took it off its stand and built it in. Regular viewers will know this pan. It was found at the beginning of the year on my shopping haul in Cornwall, where I go round all the thrift shops down there. The boys come with me as well. In this area, again, I'm just adding things out of the storage shed, including this old tray, HomeSense find several years ago. Everything I'm using is coming out of the storage shed, along with another one of these fabulous candles. I actually got 3 of them in total, so I could do a nice little display with cotton buds in the bathroom. The copper lantern was covered in black paint when I found it on eBay for £50, so I stripped it all apart and we turned it into a plug-in lamp. Now, I didn't just get one, I got 4 in total, so we've got them positioned on all sides of the cottage. Now, there are 3 of these little faux plants left, and remember, waste not, want not, don't want to put them back into storage, and the terracotta pot pile is looking a bit orange. So a few little pops of greenery. Oh, and another pot out of the garage. Again, a job lot of china from the auction from years ago. Just adds a little pop of colour. We get sunshine and we get shade at every point in time in the day in the courtyard. So there's always somewhere to sit depending on what you want. Let's just have a little look at it as we go through the different light changes. And of course, the nighttime shot.